One more episode. Where do we begin? I suppose we start at the beginning. So chapter 15 opens with Cara Dune going to get Mayfeld, who is serving community service for all of his past crimes, and somewhat reluctantly, Mayfeld agrees to come along, and he approaches the Slave One with Cara, and Boba Fett emerges, and, he steps back at first because he thinks it's Mando, and he's like, oh, I thought you were someone else. And then, of course, Mando onboards the ship, tells Mayfeld that he needs him because he is a former Imperial, and they need his prior knowledge of working under the Empire to get through the Empire's clearances and protocols. From there, Mayfeld says they need to go to Morak, which is basically a secret Imperial mining hub, and then they will get the coordinates to Moff Gideon's ship, and from there they'll obviously pursue Moff Gideon and try to get the child back. They go to this planet. Mando takes his armor off and dresses up as an Imperial trooper in order to get through their ranks, along with Mayfeld, and that was crazy enough on its own to see Mando take off his armor, and Mayfeld has this conversation with him and questions why he's allowed to take his mask off now, and tries to get at Mando a little bit about this idea that there's no right or wrong side in these wars, that all people are the same, and he also questions Mando on why he's allowed to take his armor off now, when initially Mando's whole thing was he can't take his mask off. Now he's like, hey, is it just that you can't be seen without your mask? So they're building up to this pretty big moment that's going to come a little bit later on. But before that, Mando is forced to fight for the first time without his armor, and it shows this new vulnerability, but it also allows him to showcase, hey, I'm not only sweet because of my armor, I can do things without it. And he kicks some butt. Then eventually they're actually saved by a couple of TIE fighters because they're being attacked by these pirates on the planet, and they're about to lose. They're about to get blown up, and the TIE fighters come in, kill the pirates, and then the stormtroopers finish them off. And so Mando and Mayfeld are actually saved by the Imperials. Now they enter the refinery, where Mayfeld sees someone he recognizes. He doesn't know if that person will recognize him, but he's like, hey, I can't go in there, they're gonna recognize me. So Mando's like, okay, fine, give it to me, I'll do it. He goes in there with Mayfeld's clearance codes, plugs the chip in, and then he has to remove his helmet for a facial scan. Big deal. Whoa, we thought he was going to put it right back on. No. He's approached by an Imperial officer who questions him. Mayfeld has to jump in and cover for him, and obviously Mayfeld sees him with his helmet off. The two of them, along with the Imperial officer, go for drinks, and, Mayfeld has this conversation that really gets at him with the Imperial officer, and he ends up shooting the officer. And you guys know how all of that plays out. They kill a bunch of stormtroopers, they escape. The Slave One swoops in, picks them up. They escape. Mayfeld assumes he's about to be sent back to his prison, as Cara Dune promised in the beginning of the episode, but she saw him blow up the Imperial base by choice. It wasn't something he had to do. And she's like, hey, it looked to me like Mayfeld died in the explosion. So essentially she lets him go, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna walk away. And that's that. Now, before we get to the conclusion of the episode, I want to go back to Mando removing his helmet and the implications that might have, and also talk about a rumor that had been going around a few months ago. So as far as Mayfeld seeing him with his helmet off, I don't think that's going to come back to cause any problems. Obviously, he handed him the helmet back and said, I never saw your face. Sure, he could come out and say, hey, I saw the Mandalorian without his helmet on, but who does that? What would be the purpose? I don't think that's going to be an issue. The way I could see it coming back to bite Mando is potentially the armorer or some other Mandalorian asking, have you ever removed your helmet? And then the Mandalorians, being people of such honor, and Mando in particular being who he is, won't be able to lie, and then that could make for an interesting situation. But as far as Mayfeld causing any problems, I don't see that happening. Maybe someone at the Imperial base saw his face, and that could cause an issue, but I don't really see how that would tie in and come back to bite him. But regardless, the thing that I want to talk about is there was a time period over the summer, maybe the early fall of this year, that people were saying Pedro Pascal was very frustrated with the show and the fact that he wasn't ever allowed to take his helmet off. It was actually being said that Lucasfilm sent him home, and nobody knew for sure if he was even going to be open to playing Din Djarin going forward. That rumor has since subsided, and the word is that they're filming Season 3 right now, and obviously everything's going fine. But what I want to say about this is, there's obviously a lot of rumors and a lot of controversy around Star Wars, but this kind of shows how easily rumors can spread, and also that they don't even need to have any truth or real substance behind them, because I think this episode pretty clearly proves that that's not the case, because we just had an episode where Din spent a very good portion of it with his helmet off, and the implication of that could potentially be that he's going to take it off at some point again. So I think that's an interesting thing to point out, that at the very least, that rumor was not anywhere near as serious as some people were making it out to be, and I think everything's going to be fine with this show going forward. So, rumor debunked in my opinion, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. Now, with that said, let's get back to what I viewed as the best part of this episode. Now, the best part of the episode for me, and I'm sure a lot of people agree, was when Mando pops up, back in his armor of course. Essentially, he starts taunting Moff Gideon. He repeats the exact same lines that Moff Gideon said to him about the child back in season 1 that we've been hearing in the beginning before they start the actual episode during this season, where he's like, "You have something I want. It will be mine." Mando recites those exact lines that Moff Gideon said to him. Not only does that show that what Moff Gideon said really stuck with him, but it also builds a lot of anticipation, obviously, for the final installment of this season. Now, I'm just going to be honest with you guys, I really don't know what's going to happen here. I'm sure there's going to be a battle, obviously. They're going to find Moff Gideon, and there's going to be a pretty big showdown. Is the Jedi who Grogu may or may not have reached out to going to show up? Who knows? Is Ahsoka gonna come along? I honestly don't think so at this point, just because, on Thursday they announced the Ahsoka Tano show, so I think the introduction of her character in The Jedi was all we're probably going to see of her, but maybe she'll be back, who knows. If I had to bet on the return of another character who we have already seen, I would probably have to say Bo-Katan. I could definitely see her showing up in this season again, but again, no guarantees. But what we do know is that Boba Fett and Mando and Fennec Shand and presumably Cara Dune are all going to be on this mission to retrieve Grogu, and that is going to be very, very interesting. But that's going to wrap things up for this video, guys. I just wanted to get on here and give you guys my initial thoughts as usual. So comment your thoughts on this episode down below. Let me know what you thought about it, what you're expecting for the next episode, and any other predictions you may have. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like to support the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as usual, may the Force be with you always.